Welcome back, Pokemon fans. Angel of the Night here. We are back again with more Inkay games, and of course we are up against Rich VVS. Be sure to check out their channel in the description below. Now this week's battle, of course, is a semi-final match for the Western Division, and Rich and I had to choose teams that were based on the black, white, and gray colors. And as you can see, we have Mousehold, Misdreavus, Tauros, Zebstrika, Amoonguss, and Annihilate. And of course, our opponent here had, I believe, Stonjourner, Zoroark, Tauros, Amoonguss, King Gambit, and Volcarona. Now, the team that I have here today with the Tauros, as you guys know in previous battles and previous matches, I've gone with Kantonian Tauros, I've had the Paldea and Cursed Tauros, I've used a lot of the different types of Tauros. However, I've never used a bulk up Tauros. So that's what we're doing here today. We actually have a Terra Dark bulk up Tauros with Raging Bull, Rock Slide, and Lash Out. We've decided to go with a Terra Grass Zebstrika with Lightning Rod and Life Orb, housing the high horsepower Flame Charge, Terra Blast, and Supercell Slam. We went with a pretty standard Amoonguss and Annihilate, as well as the Mousehold. However, we decided to put Bite on Mousehold with the ability of Technician. And of course, we ended up going with Misdreavus. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, Corey, why did you choose Misdreavus? Well, if you look at Mismagius and its stats, the Evolite Misdreavus actually surpasses in special defense and defense if you max those stats. So that's why I went with the Misdreavus for this. Now, of course, we are leading off here with our Tauros as well as our Amoonguss. And of course, there's the Volcarona and the Amoonguss on the opposing side. Now, as you can see here, I'm debating on if I want to go for a Terrestrialization, if I want to go for a Lash Out, or if I just want to go for like a Rock Slide here. Now, of course, with this Tauros, I'm going to be honest with you, when I originally created this team, I was under the impression, of course, how the Lash Out works. If I get intimidated, of course, I can go for Lash Out and it doubles the power. However, in some of my battles, you're going to see me using Lash Out the opposite way. If I get intimidated off, sometimes I'll do the Lash Out, and that'll do some damage there. I get mixed up very easily with Lash Out. It's something that's new to me, but I just wanted to be different. That's the whole point of these draft leagues, is to try something completely different. So he ends up going in for the Terrestrial Normal on the Volcarona. And of course, here comes the Rage Powder from the Amoonguss, which is going to redirect all the attacks into the Amoonguss itself. And of course, Tauros is going in for the good old Rock Slide. I'm really glad that I didn't go for the Terra Dark here, because obviously it is a Volcarona on the opposing side. However, Zoroark comes in, and that's something you're going to see a lot with Regulation H teams. Zoroark is always around the corner. It's always lurking. It's always there to bring up that illusion. Now, of course, we do have to decide, well, what is the biggest threat here? Are we going to go for the Zoroark, or are we going to go for the Stonjourner? So we kind of back out here. We're going to go in for the Rage Powder there once again. However, I decide I'm going to go for the Lash Out and go in for the attack onto the Zoroark. Now, was that really the smartest choice? I don't know. I mean, it's very possible it could have been. If I did go for the Terra Dark, of course, I would resist any kind of Ghost-type moves or any kind of Dark-type moves. But if I do go for the Lash Out, of course, that means I can get a direct hit off onto that Zoroark itself. Mind you, it is not 2 times damage. It is only a 75 base attack damage itself. So we go for the Rage Powder, they go for the Wide Guard, and of course that leaves me with a boosted Lash Out from the Terra Dark. That does make contact with the Zoroark, and of course Zoroark does go down. Now, of course, that's telling me that the Pokemon that's in behind is also Volcarona. Now, Terrestrial Dark is probably not the best choice. However, we do still have the Rock Slide. It's very possible Rock Slide will help us out here into this battle. If not, we would have some other Pokemon in behind here. So in comes the Amoonguss, which is actually not what I thought I would see whatsoever. So Amoonguss comes back into play, and of course, we have our own Amoonguss here. We know that Rage Powder is not going to affect that opposing Amoonguss unless it goes for a different Terrestrialization. We're going to go in for the Spore here onto the Stonjourner, and of course, we're going to try to withdraw our Tauros so we can bring in our Mousehold. Now, of course, this battle, I didn't do any cuts into it or anything along those lines, so there is going to be times where there is no commentary. Of course, I'm going to try my best to keep this up. We bring in our mouse hold here, and of course, mouse hold does receive a low kick, which I'm actually really glad that we swapped because, you know, we didn't really take any crazy damage onto that Tauros. Now, luckily for us, we actually managed to get the Spore off onto the Stonjourner. The Spore is also coming in from their Amoonguss into my mouse hold, which at this time, our two attackers that are on the field are actually both asleep. Now, I have to make a decision here. Am I going to go in for the Sludge Bomb, or am I going to swap out? Am I going to swap out the mouse hold, or am I going to try to go in for the Population Bomb? Now, there is a risk of going for Population Bomb onto the Amoonguss, of course, because sometimes Amoonguss tend to run the Rocky Helmet, and that's actually something that I've been caught with quite a few times in the past, and, you know, I'm pretty much feeling like it's a good time to risk it anyways. As long as we can get this Amoonguss out of here, that's pretty much key for me. So both of our Pokemon still are fully asleep here. The Stonjourner is asleep, Mousehold is asleep, and of course we've gone into the Sludge Bomb into their Amoonguss, and we managed to get a little bit of damage off. Now, of course, the best choice here at this time is to go for the Sludge Bomb once again, and of course we've also selected the Population Bomb into the Stonjourner. Now, I don't really expect Population Bomb to be able to do a whole lot of damage to that Stonjourner, but if we do manage to get a damage off onto it, it might be enough for us to maybe take it out in 2 turns. Now, of course, both of our attackers are still asleep. My Amoonguss is still going for the Sludge Bomb. His Amoonguss is going for the Sludge Bomb, and of course, as you can see, I'm a little bit of a 1-up onto the Amoonguss. Now, of course, we decided to lock in there once again, and we are going to go for the Population Bomb once again, hoping for another turn wake. Now, unfortunately, we don't get the wake up here. We are still fast asleep, and Stony is also still asleep. So this is kind of being a one-sided battle here. We're getting another Sludge Bomb off onto the Amoonguss, and their Amoonguss is doing a Sludge Bomb, and of course, we're kind of just throwing blows back and forth here. We are going to lock into the Sludge Bomb here once again, and yet again we are going to lock into the Population Bomb, hoping that we are going to wake up. It looks like Amoonguss is going to go for the Protect here, which allows him to save himself for one more turn. Mousehold has woken up and gone for the Population Bomb. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, I'm really glad that we managed to pull off 10 there, because I have seen Mousehold only get 1 attack in. In comes the Rock Slide that is actually going to knock out the Mousehold, and of course the Amoonguss on my team also takes a little bit of damage there as well. Now, we do have a Citrus Berry onto our Amoonguss, so we are going to gain some of our health back, which is pretty awesome. But, of course, you know, we are going to have to select another Pokemon to come back in. Pretty much our choices right now are Tauros or our Zebstrika. Now, of course, at this time, I'm bringing Zebstrika out onto the field. It does have Lightning Rod, so if I decide to go for Terrestrial of Water onto our Amoonguss, any kind of, electric attacks will be redirected into Zebstrika. And of course, you know, with Zebstrika, we have the possibility of going for Terra Grass and also go for a Terra Blast. Now, we also do have Flame Charge as well, which also will gain up our speed. So if we do end up going for like a Flame Charge, we can maybe possibly take out that Amoonguss. Now, Stonjourner is kind of a big threat Pokemon for my Zebstrika. I don't really want to get hit by it, because if I do, it's quite the possibility that Zebstrika will go down right away. There is no defensive values in this Zebstrika at all. It's basically purely attack and speed. So he withdraws the Stonjourner. He goes in with the Volcarona. And of course, here comes the Rage Powder from the Amoonguss, basically providing it the ability to get the free swap in with Volcarona. Now, we do go for the Flame Charge here. That is going to boost up our speed, as well as knock out the Amoonguss. It does have the Rocky Helmet, of course, which is good to know. That means that if I do go for the Population Bomb with our Mousehold in the future, it has a potential of taking me out. Amoonguss going in for the Spore, and of course Spore does manage to get the sleep onto the Volcarona. I thought that was actually quite interesting that actually pulled off, because normally, you know, in the events that Volcarona is on the field, sometimes it's a grass type which I'm really glad that it wasn't already in the field and already grass. So in comes the Stonjourner there once again, and we've locked into our attacks here. We're going for the high horsepower into the Stonjourner, knocking it out, leaving only the Volcarona left onto Rich's side. Now, of course, we do have a life orb onto our Zebstrika, so we are going to lose a little bit of health here every turn that we have. We're going in for the Sludge Bomb, and that is going to do some decent chip damage off onto the Volcarona. But as you can see, he does have some leftovers onto that, and it's going to gain a little bit of health back every turn. Now we're going to go in for the Sludge Bomb there once again, and we are going to lock in with a high horsepower once again. Reason why we're doing that is because if we ended up going for Supercell Slam, there's a huge potential of us missing, and could potentially take away half our HP, which I really don't want to have happen. Okay, here we go. Volcarona is still alive. We're going for the Sludge Bomb, taking him right down into the red zone. And again, a little bit of leftovers there coming back with the Volcarona. And that brings us into our final stage of the match. Now, of course, with Volcarona having the flame body, obviously it's probably not best for me to do physical attacks off onto the Volcarona. I honestly was not thinking when I went for that physical move. We did end up going for the Supercell Slam just to finish it off. I could have easily gotten away with a high horsepower, but seeing as how we're this close to the end of the battle, I figured, why not? Let's go for the Supercell Slam and have a little bit of fun. So good game there, Rich. That is battle number 1. Into battle 2. Here we come. Okay, a little battle on the beach during night. That's pretty cool. Here we go with the Amoonguss and the Volcarona onto their side. And of course, I come back in with the Amoonguss and the Tauros. Now, of course, we get the Intimidate off, which is not really going to do anything for that Volcarona. However, we are going to go for, I believe, the Rage Powder here. And then, of course, with the Tauros, we have the choice of either going for the Raging Bull or the Rock Slide. Now, of course, Rock Slide is the smartest play. Being able to hit onto the 2 opposing Pokemon, that is going to be able to get some decent damage off onto the both of them. Looks like the Amoonguss here is going into the Terra Water. And, of course, that's going to give it some decent type coverage here against my Tauros. Volcarona, of course, is going in for the Protect. Now, of course, here's the Rage Powder coming in from my own Amoonguss, which is going to allow me to redirect all the attacks from the opposing side into the Amoonguss itself. As you guys know, if you're not a grass type, the redirects do not occur. But if you're a grass type that's gone into a Terra Water, all your moves are going to go into the Amoonguss. We do manage to get a Rock Slide off here, not really going to affect the opposing Amoonguss. And, of course, pretty much at this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what, I'm going to have to Rage Powder again. I really don't want to have any kind of an issue here. I decided to go in for the Bulk Up while they actually withdraw the Volcarona and bring in a Tauros of their own. Now, in the team building aspect of this team, I debated between Lumberry and a Clear Amulet. And the reason why I did that is because, well, if I did have the Clear Amulet, that means that I wouldn't get any kind of an attack drop on the first turn. But, you know, with the whole Lash Out scenario, I really kind of require that. Now, we did get that here in this case, and we ended up going for the Spore, of course, with the Amoonguss. Pretty much we're going to try to go for the Rage Powder here, but this is going to allow me to go for the Lash Out. So I decided to go in for the Terrestrial and the Lash Out, and then I thought to myself, well, you know what, that's not really going to do anything for that Tauros on the opposing side. So I'm kind of debating on what my best options are. I pretty much thought to myself, well, if I do go for the Lash Out, it's not really effective onto the other Tauros. But I wanted to see how much damage it can do with a Terrestrial of Dark, and going in for that Lash Out. So here we go, we're getting the Terrestrialization of the Dark type, and that's kind of throwing the play there, kind of giving away my Terra if I didn't do that in the first turn. I don't think I did in the first battle. I could be wrong. But of course we go in for the Rage Powder here, which redirects everything into the Amoonguss. Here we go with the Lash Out. Of course this is going to be double damage. And as you can see, it does absolutely nothing. So in comes the Wave Crash from the Water Tauros, the Water Bread. And they get a little bit of recoil damage there and a little bit of HP and whatnot. Here comes the Sludge Bomb from the opposing Amoonguss into my Amoonguss, activating my Citrus Berry. Now, of course, that's going to regain some of my health back, which is pretty fantastic, and allowing me to stay in for another turn. So we're going to go for the Rage Powder here. I'm pretty much decided that I'm taking this Tauros out of here. I can't really do anything with it while its attack stat is actually dropped. So we're going to go into my Zebstrika. Now, of course, we're going into Zebstrika because it is an electric type Pokemon and the opposing Tauros is water bred. So if I do manage to get a Supercell Slam, I'll be able to knock out that Tauros, hopefully. So I go for the Rage Powder here, securing the swap. And of course, he's gone for the Wave Crash. He gets some recoil damage and a little bit of Life Orb damage. And of course, there's the Sludge Bomb coming in from the opposing Amoonguss, taking me right down into the red zone. So pretty much I have one more play here left to do. I go for the Rage Powder, and I decide to go for the Supercell Slam into the opposing Tauros. Now, of course, that is my strongest move that I have on the Zebstrika. I could have probably gone with a special attacker, but I mean, quite frankly, Zebstrika gets some really decent physical attacks, and at the time of me actually building this team, I really needed something that had an electric coverage and a ground coverage at the same time. And with the fact that I could go Terrestrial Grass, that means that I'd be able to live hits from opposing Pokemon of a beneficial type. So here we are, we're kind of waiting for our opponent here. He's going to withdraw the Amoonguss, and then of course he's going to bring in his Stony JJ. Now, of course, realistically, what I would want to do with the Zebstrika is go for the Terrestrial of Grass and then go in for the Terra Blast into the Stonjourner. However, obviously, that's not the play that I've selected here this turn. Amoonguss goes down from another Wave Crash, and that's going to lower more HP on the opposing side. Here's the Supercell Slam that is going to actually make contact this time and pick up the KO onto the Tauros. So right now we know that there's a Volcarona and a Amoonguss on the opposing side, and of course we also see the Stonjourner in the field here currently. So right now I have Tauros and Mousehold left, and realistically if I did bring in the Tauros, I can get the attack drop off onto the Stonjourner, and then of course I can maybe go for like a close combat or something if I had it. I do not in this case. So I'm pretty much debating on just getting the attack drop onto the Stonjourner, because any way that the Zebstrika can live longer, that's pretty much the key here. I did select Lash Out here into the Stonjourner. Probably not really the best choice. I mean, I could have probably gone for like a Raging Bull or something, and it might have done a little bit better. The Amoonguss, of course, goes for the Protect, and there's the Supercell Slam. Not going to be able to do any damage to that Amoonguss. And that's actually going to take quite a bit of my health away from the Zebstrika. So every time that you miss a Supercell Slam, you get some crazy damage. We ended up going for the Lash Out into the Stonjourner here, and of course there is the Rock Slide, almost picking up the KO onto the Zebstrika. Tauros, of course, still hanging on, not really phased by the Rock Slide at all, because now we're a Dark type. If I had stayed Fire, probably would have done a little bit more. I decided to go in for the high horsepower here with the Zebstrika. I didn't really want to go for the Terrestrial of Grass, knowing that Volcarona is on the opposing side waiting to come back in and wreak some havoc. Now, of course, we are a Dark type with our Tauros, and that's not really good considering that the opposing Pokemon is a Bug type. That's going to do quite a bit of damage if it manages to get a Bug Buzz off. The Rock Slide does get a KO onto the Volcarona. I didn't actually expect the Stonjourner to actually be swapped out. Here comes the Spore from the Amoonguss, and we do end up falling asleep. So we do have that Lumberry that is going to wake us up. We do still have Mousehold that we're going to bring in here. And again, guys, this is match number 2. So Mousehold comes in onto the field, the family of 4, looking for probably some leftover Chinese food somewhere on the field. There is the Stonjourner coming back in, and I'm pretty much debating on just going for the pure, well, not for the pure, but going for the Rock Slide. And then, of course, there's the Population Bomb. Now, I clicked incredibly fast here, and I pretty much knew at this point that this thing is going to rage powder anyways. So here's the population bob going into the Amoonguss, and then I'm like, Rocky Helmet. Here we go. So we're getting chip damage every time that we're giving chip damage. It's pretty much a good way to pick up a KO on an opposing Pokemon that does something like this. So if you guys have something that is basically going to wall something, and you're worried about mouse hold, just give it a Rocky Helmet. You're going to be fine, okay? So as you can see, every time that we do a population bomb, we actually receive damage from the Rocky Helmet. Unfortunately for us, we don't actually get the Amoonguss out before we get taken out. And we were actually able to hit 7 times, which is pretty awesome. Here's the Rock Slide, not enough to pick up the KO on either side. There's the Rock Slide coming into my Tauros here. Still not picking up the KO for me either. I decided to go for the Lash Out on the Amoonguss here, just to get some damage off. I can't really go for the Raging Bull, and I can't really go for the Rock Slide here. It's not really effective, but I mean, you know, Lash Out would probably, I believe it gives it a neutral damage, like 1, I believe. So that's pretty much what I did. I know I'm going to get hit by another Rock Slide. There is always a potential that Rock Slide can miss. So I'm kind of hoping for that, kind of in the background. He goes for the Wide Guard, and, you know, kind of expecting the Rock Slide scenario from me. So we are going to pick up the KO onto the Amoonguss. And then, of course, we're also going to receive some Rocky Helmet damage because we did a physical type attack. So that basically leaves us now with Stonjourner. And, yeah, not really the best matchup right now, considering I have absolutely no fighting moves on this Tauros. And I'm pretty sure that the Lash Out and the Raging Bull are not going to be able to do anything to this thing. If I do go for the Rock Slide, the best case scenario is that we actually end up flinching the Stonjourner. But that's exactly what we're going to do here. Just try to get a little bit of chip damage every turn. There's a low kick, and unfortunately, that is going to be game. So it's 1 for me, 1 for my opponent, Rich. GG, Rich. That's actually a really fun battle. Your team really has me second guessing what I want to do. I've actually thought about different plays every time that I tried to do this battle. So we're actually going into battle number 3 here. This is the last and final battle. Who will be the victor? Will it be myself, or will it be Rich? So here we go. It looks like King Gambit and Stonjourner is going to come out here. We've got ourselves Tauros and Amoonguss. Now, really, should I keep going for the same plays? Probably not, but I mean, at least we get the Intimidate off onto the opposing sides. Now, I'm not really sure if there was a Defiant there or not. I kind of missed that part, but here we go. We're selecting our attacks here. Pretty much, I believe it's the Rage Powder, and then I'm pretty sure I selected the Raging Bull for the King Gambit. So here we go into the Raging Bull, and oh yes, that's right. We got Zarked. I got Zarked in the replay. How bad is that? But yeah, we ended up getting the Raging Bull that actually knocked out the Zoroark, which is pretty cool. Here comes the Rock Slide coming in. As you guys can see, Zoroark just runs wild in Regulation H. It's absolutely nuts. I'm really glad that they actually didn't have King Gambit there in the beginning, because if it actually had Defiant, that would have actually increased its attack stat, and that would have been 10 times worse for me. So we're going to try to go for the same play here again. We're going to go for the Raging, or the Rage Powder, and then the Raging Bull. They're going to go in for the Terrestrialization here with the King Gambit, and realistically, I should have seen that coming. They're going into the Pure Dark type, which will allow them to resist any kind of Raging Bull. So again, Rage Powder and the attack into the King Gambit. As you can see, Raging Bull doesn't really do as much. There's the Rock Slide, of course, coming from the opposing Stonjourner, and here is the Kowtow Cleave, and that's going to come right into the Amoonguss. And again, we did the Raging Powder, so that's why the move was directed to Amoonguss itself. So, next Pokemon that has to come in is either going to be the Zebstrika or the Annihilate. Honestly, I don't really feel like Annihilate is the right choice, because if I went in with Annihilate right away, there's always the possibility of like a Sucker Punch or its own Kowtow Cleave if we were able to, you know, if he was managing to survive that attack. So pretty much at this point, I'm debating, well, am I going to go for a Supercell? Am I going to go for the Stomping Tantrum? After I selected Supercell, I'm like, yeah, you know what? If he protects and I miss, that could be a big issue here. So as you can see, I'm kind of debating back and forth what I want to do. And I decided to go for the Terrestrial of Grass and then go for the Terra Blast into the Stonjourner. And then, of course, we ended up going for the Rock Slide with the Tauros. Now, of course, we didn't go for the Terrestrial Grass here at all in these battles. So I wanted to show off the Zebstrika, and I'm going to be honest with you, I got a little bit cocky here. In comes the Sucker Punch into the Zebstrika, and as you can see, that just one-shots us. Zebstrika has really no good defensive values. It's pretty much primarily designed for speed and the different variants of attacks, such as like special attack or physical attack. So now we actually have only 2 Pokemon remaining. There's the Tauros, which is clearly hurting here. And then, of course, there is the full HP Annihilate in the background. So we bring out Annihilate here to face off against the Stonjourner and the King Gambit. And, of course, we have the pretty much the standard set, the Taunt, the Bulk Up, the Rage Fist, and the Drain Punch. And then, of course, we still have the Tauros, which has the Raging Bull and Lash Out and whatnot. So right now, I know that if I do not manage to get a decent Drain Punch off here, I'm pretty sure that that King Gambit is just going to run wild. Now, they did want to finish off the Tauros, which to me, I would have thought that Annihilate would have been the biggest threat. Now, of course, he goes for the low kick. I don't know if maybe their attacks got mixed up or whatnot, but we do manage to get a Drain Punch off onto the King Gambit, which is pretty fantastic. And then, of course, now I don't really know what to do. I can either go for the Bulk Up here. Bulk Up is pretty much a lucky attack here at this point. The fact that they ended up swapping out the King Gambit for the Amoonguss actually ended up helping me out. So we actually managed to get the Bulk Up there. That's going to raise up our attack and our defensive values. And that's going to allow me to maybe go in for an attack here next turn, or maybe even to taunt the Amoonguss. Now, most Amoonguss, of course, are going to go for the Rage Powder, or they're going to go for the Spore. So first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure that this thing did not have the capability of going for that Spore attack. So we actually did manage to get damage from a Rock Slide, but that's okay. We handled that like a pro. Once we got that Bulk Up there, that actually boosted up our defensive values enough where it's not going to really hurt. So we got a Bulk Up, we got a Taunt off onto the Amoonguss. We are now going to have to go for the Drain Punch into the Stonjourner. Now we're going to have to hope that we don't get flinched by that Rock Slide, and luckily we didn't here. We actually managed to get a knockout here on the Stonjourner. So that leaves us with 2 more Pokemon remaining on the opposing side. There is the Amoonguss, and then of course there is the King Gambit. Now of course he goes in for the Sludge Bomb, and that is going to make contact, and as well it's also going to poison me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a little concerned here. King Gambit is such a big threat, and with the fact that it's a Dark type, I know I'm a Fighting and a Ghost type, but I feel like the Dark typing actually kind of does way more to me than what it probably should. But King Gambit comes back in here, and I don't really know at this point what Pokemon is going to be faster. So in comes the Sucker Punch, of course a priority based move. We did lock into the Drain Punch here, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to make that contact, and we actually knock out the King Gambit, which is pretty fantastic when you think about it. That Pokemon could have run wild and just wrecked the entire team. If it had any defensive values higher than what it already did, I don't think the Drain Punch would have actually been able to do anything. The Bulk Up surely helped out, plus as well with the Taunt onto this Amoonguss. The fact that I even had Taunt onto the Annihilate is huge, because I don't normally run those kind of moves. I've only started getting into that stuff there more so with VGC in the last, oh god, probably 6-7 months. Normally I'm not a taunter. Normally I don't really do a lot of them restrictive type moves. But it definitely has come in quite handy, especially like a Mungus with like clear smog. That's like worth its weight in gold. We managed to pull off another taunt here onto the Mungus. In comes another sludge bomb. We do survive, which is beautiful. We get a little bit of HP back from our leftovers here, and I'm pretty sure that that's one of the key things that kind of helped us stay away from like poison knocking us out. Plus as well with that drain punch and that King Gambit definitely helped out quite a bit as well. So I'm kind of hoping at this point that Rage Fist is going to be the big end-all move, and it really is. So good game there, Rich. Thank you very much for the battle. Guys, make sure to check out the description below and check out their channels. Take care, have a good one, and peace out.